Best gift for your daughter, disappear from our family forever, she said, lifting her champagne glass like she'd just delivered a toast instead of a sentence. 2 weeks before our only child's wedding. That's when my wife decided to erase me, like I was a typo in her Pinterest perfect life. I was still wearing my paint-stained hoodie from sealing the garden bench she insisted we needed for wedding photos. She stood in the kitchen with her hair curled and her voice syrupy smooth, like a realtor trying to sell me a future I already built. "We want the day to be joyful," she said, flashing a brittle smile, "and your presence, it would complicate things." I blinked. Once. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood it too well. The sentence had been written long before she said it. In the glances she stopped giving me. In the empty bed, in the way she practiced her speech before the mirror. Always alone, never asking what I'd say. "So your gift is what? Exile?" I asked. My voice didn't crack, I didn't raise it. That seemed to bother her more than if I'd screamed. She leaned in slightly, as if explaining something to a child who'd dropped the ball. "Come on, you know you don't fit the image anymore. We've grown in different directions." That's when it hit me. This wasn't new, this was rehearsed, pre-cleared with friends, maybe even her book club. Hell, probably with our daughter. The champagne wasn't celebration. It was closure. I nodded, that's all. Then I turned around, walked upstairs, and started packing. 2 bags. Essentials only. One was already half done, because some part of me knew. You don't forget a man for 20 years, and then act surprised when he doesn't beg to stay. I grabbed the keys, no yelling, no guilt-tripping, just one last look at the wedding invitation on the fridge. My name wasn't on it anyway. And I closed the door behind me like a period at the end of a sentence she thought she'd written alone. That moment right there, that was the reset, not a breakdown, not some tragic midlife unraveling. It was a decision. If you're reading this, and more than 90% of you probably are without following, do me a favor and hit that subscribe. You want more of this? You want stories that actually make your jaw clench? That 1 second of support means a lot, more than you think. It tells the team to keep digging. Anyway, back to the kitchen. She didn't run after me. No tearful apologies, no sudden regret. She went back to the charcuterie board she was building. Goat cheese and betrayal. I got into the car and drove. Not away from them, but towards something they didn't expect. The silence where I do my best work. I didn't go to a bar. I didn't go cry on someone's couch. I went somewhere with signal, logged into my cloud drive, opened a folder I'd labeled 3 years ago. Contingency, dandelion. That was the code word, an inside joke. Or at least it used to be. She once told me dandelions were just weeds with good PR. I always remembered that. Inside the folder, copies of bank transfers, original wedding deposits, scanned deeds, a trust structure I built while she was attending wine and watercolor classes. See, she thought silence meant surrender. She mistook stillness for softness. She forgot that some men don't yell when they're angry, they build. And when they're done building, they remove you from the blueprint, quietly, without fanfare. So I left, physically gone. Digitally, very much present. She may have uncorked champagne, but I had just opened the vault, and that, my friends, was the last day she ever had full control of her curated little fairy tale. The next morning, I didn't sleep in or collapse somewhere like a defeated man in a sad indie film. I got coffee, black, bitter, alive. Then I drove by the apartment, not because I wanted to look back. I don't romanticize drywall and beige furniture. I just wanted to confirm it. And there it was, swinging slightly in the wind like a smirk. The for sale sign, a fresh one, professionally printed, no hesitation. The door was already painted over. Our doormat, the one with the dumb quote she loved, "This is our happy place," gone. She didn't waste time. Efficiency always was her real religion. She ran our family like a project with a Q3 deadline. I parked at a small cafe nearby, logged into the bank app, joint account, frozen, balance line, grayed out, no transactions, no access. I didn't even sigh. I just sipped. Then the message came through like clockwork. Just until we sort paperwork, nothing personal. I could practically hear her voice in it, that flat, HR-approved calm, nothing personal, Like being wiped from your own family was a clerical update. Like I'd failed two-factor authentication on my own life. I tapped her profile on social media, no photos of us. Engagement announcement, just her and our daughter framed in golden light. Caption, the day we've dreamed of. Just us girls. Just us girls, right? Even the dog was in more pictures than I ever was, which is fine. He peed on my boots every winter anyway. I opened my cloud drive, the private folder was still there. Buried 3 levels deep, named something bland enough to be ignored. Quarterly's archive. She never liked numbers. Inside were documents, spreadsheets, scans of handwritten notes, screenshots, wedding invoices, payment confirmations, vendor lists, my name on at least half the contracts, because back when this was supposed to be a family event, I was the one putting down the money. I started tagging files, names, amounts, dates. I wasn't preserving memories. I was preserving leverage. That's what she never understood. While she was erasing me socially, curating her clean little narrative, I was building an index of everything she'd forgotten I touched. The photographer contract, booked through my corporate discount. The venue, my signature locked in the deposit. The dress-fitting travel, frequent flyer miles from my business card. One by one, I labeled the strings, like prepping a legal autopsy. You don't get to ghost someone who built the house and then act surprised when the lights go out. And what made it worse, what made it surgical, was how she did it all with that same detached warmth she uses when sending a return email. Thanks for everything. Wish you the best. She always hated confrontation, so she staged an erasure instead. No fight, just absence. Like a chair no one mentions missing until they need to sit down. Fine. She removed me from the guest list. I was removing her insulation, layer by layer, quietly, thoroughly. This wasn't about money. This was about authorship. She wanted to reframe our life as hers, a polished single mother heroine fantasy, a woman who rose from a difficult marriage to give her daughter a perfect day. But I knew the receipts, I had the timeline, and more importantly, I knew what she'd forgotten to lock down. Because in her rush to erase me, she left one very key door wide open, and behind that door wasn't a man groveling for forgiveness. Behind it was everything she needed for her perfect ending, and I had the key. The cabin wasn't rustic charming or Pinterest ready. It was boxy, smelled like cedar and mothballs, and had one working heater that groaned when I turned it on. Perfect. I paid 6 months up front, in cash. The old guy who rented it to me nodded like he didn't care why a man would want to disappear, just that I paid on time and didn't trash the place. 2 hours from the city, enough trees to muffle the world, no doorbells, no neighbors, just birds in the morning, wind at night, and my name off everyone's lips. I set up a folding table by the window, a plastic chair, an ancient printer, and a pile of legal pads. Nothing fancy. You don't need mahogany to dismantle a story. You need quiet. From the porch, I watched a pair of jays fight over crusts I left on the railing. Blue feathers, fast wings. They didn't ask questions. They didn't pretend things were fine. Back inside, I booted up my old laptop and started printing. Invoices first, dress vendor, makeup artist, catering, tent rentals, DJ, even the florist who overcharges for rustic elegance. I called each one casually like a helpful uncle checking logistics, and just like that, one after the other, I found the same thing. My name had been scrubbed, not removed with malice, just omitted, like it never belonged. The caterer, oh yes, we just finalized with Amanda last week, such a lovely woman. The planner, she mentioned her husband wasn't involved, said it was better that way. The florist, we made sure the arrangements match her vision, no masculine touches. No masculine touches, that one stuck with me. I almost laughed. Then I pulled up the venue contract, scanned the PDF. Line 12B, depositor signature. My name, clear as day, still there, still binding. Smiled, not big, just enough to feel it behind my teeth. Because here's the thing, erasing someone from memory is easy. From reality, that takes paperwork. And she hadn't finished the job. She assumed if I left quietly, I'd stay quiet. She didn't understand. Men like me don't burn down houses. We just take the screws out of the frame and walk away with the foundation.
I opened a new spreadsheet, labeled columns: vendor, contact, deposit source, payment status, contract terms. Line by line, I filled it in. Each cell a thread, each vendor a bead. Quietly, methodically, I rebuilt the map they thought I'd wandered off. Funny how a man becomes more visible the moment you stop looking at him. By dusk, I had enough to draft the bones of a withdrawal letter. Not to threaten anyone. No, too loud. Just something legal enough to shift financial liability. Something that said, he was here, he mattered, and if this collapses, it's not on him. I didn't need to sabotage anything. That was her domain now. She'd taken the wheel.
I was just removing the airbags. The key wasn't revenge, it was precision. If the wedding happened, it would happen on her shoulders alone. If it didn't, well, no one could say I torched it. That's what they never teach you about disappearing. It's not about fading away. It's about letting them miscalculate your silence. And from my little cabin, with the printer huffing and the birds screaming like tiny blue alarms, I wasn't gone. I was watching from the shadows of their plans, waiting for the moment they'd realize you can't write someone out of the story when they built the damn plot. The voicemail came in just past midnight. Her voice was tight, rehearsed, like she was trying not to shake, or maybe just trying to sound like she believed it was okay. Dad, I'm not mad. I just need some space right now. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Click. No second message. No follow-up. I played it once, then deleted it, not out of spite, out of necessity. You can't carry sentiment when you're navigating a minefield. They'd chosen silence over conflict. That was the family culture, after all. If something made you uncomfortable, you removed it, blocked it, smoothed it over with Instagram captions and politely distant smiles. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't ask what happened. She just wanted space from the fallout. So I gave her exactly that. I didn't text back. I didn't call. Instead, I pulled up the number for a consultant I'd only spoken to twice before. Paul Mendoza, asset strategist, ruthless and corduroy. When I told him I needed a fresh look at the family trust, he didn't ask why. Just said, PDF or hard copy. We met at a neutral office, neutral decor, fake ferns, soft lighting, polite nods. He brought coffee. I brought the binder. He flipped through page after page, didn't blink, didn't flinch, just murmured little sounds like a surgeon confirming an incision site. Then, halfway through section 7, he paused. There, he said. Found it. Clause 14.7b, buried in legal mulch. In the event of marital separation, defined by voluntary or involuntary residential bifurcation exceeding 72 consecutive hours, residual trust dividends will auto-redirect to a non-joint account under the originating settler's control, pending official dissolution or mediated agreement. Translation: because I moved out and it had been 4 days, residuals were now legally mine. No court filing necessary, no lawyer letters, just absence, just silence, just a man who'd finally stopped coming home. Mendoza looked up. Did she know about this clause? I shook my head. She didn't even read the full trust when we signed it. She just liked the name, Legacy Framework. Said it sounded fancy. He chuckled, dry. Well, it's fancy enough to reroute about $14,000 a month, starting now. He slid the file back to me. Want to trigger a full asset recalibration? Not yet, I said. Just let it trickle, quietly. Because the best part wasn't the money. It was the silence. The mechanism working invisibly in the background while she drank wine on the porch with her girlfriends and bragged about how peaceful the separation had been. She hadn't filed anything. Thought she didn't need to. She had the apartment, the social narrative, the wedding planning committee, but I had the language, the contractual tripwires, the forgotten phrases she skimmed over while planning centerpieces. While she erased me from her family's story, I was unspooling the structure that paid for her script. Dividends, stock movements, trust-fed perks. One by one, the invisible supports shifted. She wouldn't notice it right away. Not until an invoice bounced. Not until an expected deposit didn't land. Not until her new advisor, the junior guy she hired because he smiled a lot and looked good in Navy, realized he'd missed the most important clause in the document he claimed to have reviewed. I didn't need revenge. I needed recalibration. Because if they were going to remove the father from the wedding, fine. But they forgot one thing. You don't get to keep the legacy if you delete the man who built it. And now? The legacy was moving. and she was still standing where she thought the ground would never shift. The venue sat like a chateau someone forgot to finish. Whitewashed walls, tall hedges, decorative fountains that hadn't run in months. I pulled into the gravel drive just after noon, dressed in jeans and a jacket with a broken zipper. The receptionist's head popped up the second I opened the front door. "Can I help?" "Oh, Mr. Carson, right?" she said, half standing from her desk. Her voice had that rehearsed hospitality tone, but there was a hint of real recognition. I nodded. "Just wanted to check on a few things before the big day." She smiled, gestured toward the back office. "Of course. Amanda said you'd probably be coming by to handle the final clearance." I tilted my head slightly. "She did?" "Oh yeah," she chuckled. "Said you were taking care of everything like always." Like always. That phrase sat in my chest like a tack under the skin. She brought me a lukewarm coffee in a paper cup. Vanilla creamer. Exactly how Amanda used to drink hers. Sweet enough to choke on. In the back room, she pulled out a 3-ring binder, spine cracked, tabs labeled by vendor, catering, bar service, cleanup, live music. Each page had notes in 2 different inks, Amanda's looping script in purple and the venue's black pen checks. I flipped through, slowly, familiar pages. I remembered writing the first check, excited like a teenager. I remembered Amanda showing me fabric swatches while our daughter texted emoji votes for table runners. Then I turned to the financial summary, 9,200 outstanding, payment marked TBD. "Funny," I said. She told me the balance was handled. The assistant looked nervous. "We've just been a bit behind finalizing. Happens a lot." I pointed to the liability clause. If the bride's family defaults, payment responsibility reverts to the initial contract signatory. She nodded. "That would be you, yes." "Not anymore," I said. I took out a pen, flipped to the back, and signed the release of financial responsibility. It was a clause they didn't expect to be used. Most couples never think the signer will back out days before the event. But there it was, in clean legalese, a simple exit hatch. Once I signed, the venue no longer had fallback rights to chase me for unpaid balances. Any gap in payment? That was squarely on Amanda now, or our daughter, depending on how she spun the story. I handed the binder back. "Thanks for the coffee." The assistant gave a polite smile, maybe sensing the shift but not quite understanding it. On the way out, I paused near the courtyard where the ceremony was supposed to happen. Strings of lights already up, white chairs in neat rows. I could still see the ghost of myself, standing there in a suit holding back tears as I gave my daughter away. That version of me, warm, proud, allowed to belong, was dead now. They had made their edits, cropped me out, but they forgot that even cropped shadows still fall on the scene. I walked past the parking lot flower beds Amanda had once insisted were magical at dusk and climbed into my car. By the time they noticed, it would be too late. They'd planned a wedding on a bridge I built, and now I'd quietly pulled out the spine. They just hadn't noticed the whole thing was starting to lean. I sat at the dining table in the cabin, the same table that creaked if you leaned too hard on the left side, and stared at the checkbook. It was one of those old ones, the kind you tear out slowly, the paper making that gritty rip like it's peeling off skin. I hadn't used it in years. Everything had gone digital. But this moment, this needed paper. Something tactile, something she couldn't screenshot and forward with a comment. I filled it out slowly. "Pay to the order of Fairgrove Estate Events. Amount just under half the balance. Memo. Nothing." In the envelope, I added one small note, no letter, no explanation. Just my initials, etched in blue ink. The same way I used to sign field trip slips or birthday cards she didn't bother reading twice. On the back of the envelope I wrote, "Please send receipt to the bride directly. No return address." Then I drove 30 minutes to the nearest post office and dropped it in the box myself. Not out of paranoia, out of precision. A man shouldn't outsource the last thing he signs in his daughter's name. It wasn't a gift, not really. It was a reminder. A small, cold anchor in a ceremony that had decided I didn't exist. By nightfall, my phone rang. Unknown number. But I knew. Her voice came through before the second ring ended. "Was this you?" She didn't have to clarify. Not with that tone. Not with that silence on either side of the words. I didn't speak at first. Let it stretch. Then I said, "The rest is her responsibility now. I'm no longer part of that house." There was a pause, a real one. Not like the pauses you get when someone's composing their next defense. This was the pause of someone trying to line 2 timelines. that no longer matched. I didn't know everything, Dad, she said finally. I'm sorry. I know, I replied. That's why I answered. Then I hung up. No click, no goodbye. Just the low, final hum of disconnection. I sat back, coffee in one hand, phone face down on the table. The birds were quiet outside for once. The whole forest felt like it was listening. What they didn't understand was that I didn't want to ruin the wedding. That would have been easy. One call to the venue. Revoke signature.
Tiny clause activation, done. But no, that would have been noise, too loud, too emotional. They would have painted me as unstable, bitter, fragile. Instead, I chose clarity. I gave enough to let the day limp forward.
Just enough to prove I wasn't out to destroy anything, just out to be remembered. She would get her wedding. She'd smile for the cameras. The toasts would pour like syrup and everyone would forget who poured the foundation. That's fine. But the receipt would come, marked partial payment from my initials. It would land in her inbox or her lap or her purse, and it would land like a stone. No drama, no confrontation, just a reminder, mid-honeymoon planning or centerpiece arranging, that I was still embedded in the framework of this event, that I had paid for the lights she danced under, even if she danced without me. It's not about being included, it's about not being erased. She had chosen her silence, I had given her mine. Now she could sit in her joy, her curated memories, her filtered images, and know that somewhere in the middle of it all was a man she never got the full story on. A man who didn't storm the gates, but quietly shifted the weight of the ground beneath them. Bitterness is loud, but detachment echoes, and echoes last longer than applause. The night before the wedding, the house she rented for the rehearsal dinner was glowing. Candles in hurricane glasses, coordinated linen napkins, little chalkboard place cards with everyone's name, even the cousin who cheated on his last 3 girlfriends. The playlist was soft jazz, the kind that sounds expensive but doesn't offend anyone. Amanda held her wine like a woman who thought she'd won. In many ways, she had. The air buzzed with admiration. Old friends leaned in. New friends toasted her strength. The caterer, whom I paid a deposit to 6 months prior, was slicing lamb medallions and serving wine I recognized from the cellar she said she never liked, until now. She floated around the room like a benevolent queen, her smile polished, her eyes just glossy enough to look emotional in photographs. My name, of course, didn't come up once. No awkward silences, no seat left empty. They'd cleaned the guest list so thoroughly I half expected them to memory hole my face like some Soviet-era perch. Then, around 9:40 p.m., the venue representative arrived, not in a panic, not even flustered, just calm, neutral, holding a leather-bound folder and wearing a polite, practiced smile. Mrs. Carson? She asked gently. Amanda turned, still smiling, wineglass half lifted. Yes? Could I have a quick word? They stepped into the hallway by the kitchen, just far enough for no one to hear clearly, but I knew the body language. I knew that slight hunch in Amanda's shoulders, the way her mouth twitched when she heard something that didn't match her plan. Final payment's still pending, the rep said evenly. We just wanted to confirm. Ceremony's tomorrow at 4. Amanda blinked. My husband took care of it. The rep flipped to a page. He removed himself as payer, signed the release clause. Liability reverts to the primary planner. In this case, you. It's funny how fast the color drains when someone realizes they're holding a rope that's already frayed. She stepped aside, pulled out her phone, walked to the far corner of the hallway, dialed. Once, twice. No answer. She tried again. Nothing. Then just as she began to turn, her screen lit up with a message. One image, no text. It was a scan of the clause 14A, the one in the venue contract she skimmed while multitasking during a Bravo rerun. The clause I pointed to a year ago before she waved it off with, just sign it, we'll deal with the boring stuff later. And there, at the bottom in blue ink, her initials. Sharp, careless. Hers. The phone dipped slightly in her hand. Her breath hitched. She wasn't panicking yet. That would come later. But in that moment, that was dread, the quiet kind. The kind that lands in your throat and stays there like static. She returned to the dining room, sat back at the head of the table, smiled tight. Someone clinked a glass and gave a toast about new beginnings. She raised hers too, but her eyes didn't smile anymore. She didn't eat the lamb, didn't finish the wine, didn't laugh when someone made a joke about honeymoon packing. She just stared at her phone screen off, her fingers clenched a little too tight around the stem of the glass. Because that was the night she finally asked herself a question she should have asked a year earlier. What did I actually sign? And more importantly, what else did he never say, but still set in motion? The game wasn't loud. It wasn't public. But it was hers now. All of it. 4:42 a.m. Her phone buzzes against the glass-top vanity table where her makeup artist is still arranging brushes. Amanda's wearing a silk robe that says Mother of the Bride in rose gold across the back, because subtlety died sometime between the Pinterest board and the fourth venue walkthrough. The screen flashes. Fairgrove Estate Events. She excuses herself, leaving behind a trail of perfume and half-finished compliments. Hello? She answers, voice crisp but already strained. Mrs. Carson, just following up. Final payment still hasn't cleared. As stated, we'll need that resolved by noon or the event will be canceled. The tone is polite but unmistakable. The same tone surgeons use before they recommend amputation. Amanda forces a smile even though no one is watching. Yes, of course. I'm heading to the bank now. There must have been a mix-up. But it's not a mix-up. And she knows it. The second she hangs up, she's in the car, makeup half done, earrings not even in, no assistant, no husband to bark orders at, no curated calm. At the bank, she flashes ID and urgency in equal parts. She leans forward, low voice, press smile. I need a wire release from our joint marital account. There's a wedding today. The venue needs confirmation. The teller hesitates, then types. His brow furrows. Sorry, Mrs. Carson. This account is currently under a hold, pending litigation. Litigation? She laughs. The sound is hollow. No, that's a mistake. There's no litigation. We're not even divorced. The teller's eyes flick nervously to the screen. It says here a trust-related clause was triggered, initiating provisional lock status due to residential separation exceeding 72 hours. Her throat tightens. She dials her lawyer. Fast. It rings 5 times before he picks up. Groggy. Saturday morning voice. Why didn't you tell me the accounts would freeze? She snaps. A pause. I wasn't aware they would, he stammers. You never mentioned any clause about triggered holds. Was this from the prenuptial or the trust framework? She bites the inside of her cheek. It was the marital account. Some clause he must have added during the revision last year. You reviewed it. A beat of silence. He exhales like a man trying not to panic. I didn't see any clause like that. That's because you didn't look for it, she hisses. You skimmed it. You told me it was just standard updates. You said there was nothing new. And he had. She remembers now. He'd waved the 23-page update off like it was a restaurant menu. Just sign here, Amanda. Nothing changes unless someone files. But someone didn't file. Someone moved out. And that was enough. She stares at her reflection in the bank's glass door, hair clipped back, robe askew, foundation half blended, a woman halfway into a story she no longer controls. She ends the call, doesn't say goodbye. Her phone buzzes again. This time it's the wedding planner. Voicemail. Then her daughter. Where are you? Then the caterer. Need head count confirmation. Then silence. She drives back to the venue, breath shallow, pulse in her ears, like a second heartbeat. She's not crying. Not yet. She's still clinging to the idea that this is salvageable, that maybe she can cover the gap, pull from a savings account, borrow from her sister, beg the venue for mercy. But she knows. She knows. Control isn't a switch. It's scaffolding. And hers is cracking, one clause at a time. Because she never read the documents, never asked what was buried in the fine print. She had the house, the guests, the performance. But he had the architecture, and now, the entire day, her masterpiece of reinvention is balanced on a single line she never bothered to underline. The web is still holding, but it's trembling. And somewhere in a cabin surrounded by silence, the man she erased is sipping coffee, watching the strands unravel. The ceremony wasn't what she planned. Not exactly. The chairs had been rearranged, fewer of them now, with rented benches swapped in for the higher tier seating. The original floral arches were reduced to simple bouquets tied with twine. The harpist canceled. No signature cocktails at the bar, just 2 dispensers, lemonade and something with cucumber in it. But it happened, eventually, hours behind schedule. The weather held, just barely, though the clouds looked like they were waiting for a cue, and Amanda, ever the master of optics, smiled through it all, posed in the sun-drenched aisle like nothing had cracked. The guests wouldn't know. Not most of them. They'd see the highlights, the carefully chosen photos. They'd hear the speeches, the toast about new chapters and strong women. Amanda clinked her glass during the reception, surrounded by women in matching dresses and men trying not to sweat through their linen shirts. She gave her toast, light on emotion, heavy on polished phrases. She used every tool she had, the controlled laugh, the hand over heart, the long pause before "I'm just so proud of the woman you've become." It played. They clapped. And then, just before the cake cutting, the officiant tapped a spoon against his glass and raised a hand. "There's one more note," he said, "a message requested by the bride from someone who couldn't be here today." Amanda turned. Slowly, the officiant pulled out a folded page, thick stock, no handwriting, just print, stark, clean. The room hushed. A few phones tilted upward, recording. "I wish you joy," the officiant read aloud. His voice was even. "I'll always be proud. Your happiness matters more than anything to me." A few people smiled, a soft awe from someone in the back. He continued, "And when you look at your wedding photos in the years to come, if you ever wonder why I'm not in them, it's not because I left. It's because I was removed." The room froze, the sound of champagne flutes being lowered. A fork dropped, clinking against porcelain. Amanda didn't move, didn't blink. He kept reading, calm, soft-spoken. "I wasn't invited to witness the vows, but I remember your first words. I wasn't asked to walk you down the aisle, but I walked beside you your entire childhood. And I wasn't allowed a seat today, but I gave you everything that built this table." He folded the letter gently. No further comment. The guests looked from one another to Amanda, unsure whether to clap, sip, speak, or stare. The silence stretched. Not heavy, not angry, just full. Amanda set her glass down. Her hand trembled once, then stilled. Her daughter, the bride, didn't look at her. Not right away. Because in that moment, every filtered image in Amanda's carefully curated fairy tale developed a shadow, and no amount of posing could edit it out. She didn't storm away, didn't cause a scene that would have ruined the pageantry. She just stood straighter, smiled thinner, and asked the DJ to start the music. People danced, the cake was cut, but the footage, the reels, the stories, the shared clips, they all captured the same thing. A pause, a letter, a truth that didn't scream, it whispered, and it landed like a bruise under the skin of the evening. But because it didn't matter how many centerpieces she salvaged, or which vendors she guilt-tripped into showing up last minute, the story she wrote had a missing chapter, and the man she'd written out left a line she could never delete. 3 weeks after the wedding, the last of the rented champagne flutes had been returned. The photographer sent over the final gallery. 100 images, all golden hour perfect, faux candid shots of laughter, cake, sparklers. There wasn't a single trace of him. Just as she wanted. Amanda sat at the kitchen island of her new condo, barefoot, swirling rosé in a stemless glass, the same brand he used to buy. She told herself she liked it now, said it tasted better without the guilt. Then came the knock. Not a delivery, not a neighbor. Her lawyer stood in the doorway, face pale, tie askew, a man who looked like he'd been living inside a spreadsheet with a countdown. She raised an eyebrow. "What, no call first?" He stepped in without answering. "I need you to sit down," he said. She blinked. "What is this, a soap opera? Just tell me." He pulled out a thick folder, dropped it on the granite counter. The sound echoed. "We missed something," he said. She folded her arms. "Missed what?" "The trust. The joint title on your condo. The equity transfers, all of it. It's under provisional hold." She stared at him. "Excuse me?" "Until full marital asset reconciliation is completed, and per the stipulations in the legacy framework, which you signed without redline, every asset tied to the primary trust is frozen." She set her glass down. It wobbled slightly. He flipped to a highlighted section. He never contested anything, never filed an injunction, but he didn't need to. He added one line, just one. She leaned forward slowly. What line? He cleared his throat, then read it aloud like it was a verdict. Full distribution and liquidity authorization contingent upon complete settlement of shared trust prior to remarriage of either party. Her fingers curled against the marble. What does that mean? It wasn't her voice that asked. Her new partner, Ryan, stepped in from the hallway, jaw tense, towel around his neck like he'd just stepped out of a Peloton ad. The lawyer looked at him, then back at Amanda. It means you can't sell, you can't refinance, you can't release equity, not unless you meet the terms he set. Amanda's lips parted. He didn't say anything about that, not once. He didn't need to, the lawyer said. He did, just not with words. She sat down slowly as if gravity had tripled. Ryan's expression darkened. So what? You're financially tied to your ex indefinitely? The lawyer didn't answer. He didn't have to. Amanda stared at the folder, page after page of legal precision. His fingerprints were on every clause, every timing trigger, every date-locked condition, because while she had been planning centerpieces, he'd been planning the exit, not from the marriage, from her. And he had done it without shouting, without fanfare, just one last signature, one last clause, one final door she didn't even know she'd closed behind herself. The wedding was over, the guests were gone, the pictures were posted, but the ending? That had just been rewritten, and this time she wasn't the author.